It is day 233 of the second Trump administration, if you can believe it. And tomorrow, bipartisan staff from the House Oversight Committee will come here to New York City to review unredacted Jeffrey Epstein birthday book, according to a source familiar, and boy, would I like to be there. That is the book that includes the letter that appears to be signed by President Trump, though he is now denying it. One of the lawyers for Epstein's estate says they hope to be turning over more documents soon. My colleague Hallie Jackson has the latest reaction from the White House.
President Trump, for the first time, now reacting to the release of that notorious Jeffrey Epstein birthday book, telling NBC's Garrett Haake in a phone call it's a dead issue, not commenting further. That's after the House Oversight Committee released these images of a book compiled by Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein's 50th birthday in 2003. It includes this drawing, allegedly from the president, of a naked woman's outline, a signature near the thighs. The message, in part, enigmas never age.
The president did not write that letter. He did not sign those documents.
The White House signaling it's open to an expert handwriting review and blasting Democrats who have been vocal.
The release of the salacious pictures from the Epstein files shows what a liar Trump is.
But it's Republicans, the president's own party, leading the investigation on Capitol Hill.
Democrats find one thing in there and they promote it and try to get a narrative. This investigation is about providing justice and accountability for the victims.
Meanwhile, a group of Democratic senators is trying to pressure Trump in the courts against sending troops into Democrat-led cities. They include senators who represent Chicago, Baltimore, Boston, and Portland, all cities where Trump has threatened to send the National Guard. Now, here's the thing. The New York Times points out recently that many big city leaders are fine with help on crime. In fact, they welcome it. But they want help from federal agents to trace guns, conduct surveillance, and capture fugitives. Those are the things local and federal officers usually coordinate on. What they don't want is federal troops occupying their city and getting involved in law enforcement. And it does matter what local leaders want. As law enforcement experts have told the Times, quote, policing without the blessing of those being policed can backfire, end quote. And we've got some breaking news within the last hour. A U.S. district judge has temporarily blocked Donald Trump's firing of Fed Governor Lisa Cook as her lawsuit plays out. We're going to dig into that in just a bit. But let's get started and get smarter tonight with the help of our lead-off panel. Melanie Zanona is here, NBC Capitol Hill correspondent. Jeff Mason, White House correspondent for Reuters, and former Democratic Senator Doug Jones of the state of Alabama. All right, tonight, a reporter actually asked the president about the letter in the birthday book, and I want to share his response.
It's not my signature, and it's not the way I speak. And anybody that's covered me for a long time know that's not my language. It's nonsense. And frankly, you're wasting your time. All you do is trying to get off the great success of D.C. and about 200 other things we've done that are so successful.
Okay, riddle me this, Jeff. Trump is clearly trying to completely shut the Epstein story down. But at the same time, his press secretary is agreeing to potential handwriting analysis. Explain the strategy to me.
He's been trying to shut the story down for weeks unsuccessfully, and that is unusual for President Trump in terms of that success, because even long before he was president of the United States, one of his superpowers as a public figure has been the ability to deflect, to turn people's attention elsewhere, and to change the subject. And that just hasn't worked with this particular issue, in large part, in this case, because it's his base that's still upset about it, and it's Republicans who are pursuing the investigation, in addition to Democrats, for sure. But I think it's clear that he's frustrated by it. He wanted tonight to talk about what he views as success from the National Guard being in Washington, D.C., and he's asked about Jeffrey Epstein. And you're right, Caroline Leavitt also said today in her briefing that the White House would be open to a forensic test of the signature. But I think she did that largely because they believe very strongly that they're right, and they believe what the president says when he says that that isn't his signature and those are not his words.
Doug, how would you handle this if you were in the Senate right now, representing Alabama? What would you do? What would your constituents want you to do?
You know, I would just say, okay, get the forensic analysis. Let's look at it. And it doesn't take a forensic analysis to see that that's Donald Trump's handwriting. This is not something that can be easily replicated. And the drawing is so consistent with other drawings that we know exactly that he's done that have been sold at auction. You just show those side by side. You go into the Senate floor, you go into a town hall, you show those things side by side, and then you prove it.
Well, James Comer, yes, he's a Republican, but he is the man leading the investigation. He's the House Oversight Chair. He stands by Trump's claim that it's not him.
Of course he's going to stand by his claim. You know, Stephanie.
But hold on, not of course, because until now, whether it's James Comer or others, the investigation is going on.
No, but of course he's going to stand by those claims. Think about everything that Comer has done. He has stood by this consistently. This whole investigation is an effort to prove the president not guilty of anything. He may not be guilty of anything. If he's not guilty of anything, release the files. Go ahead and get to the point of the matter. Don't release stuff that's already been out there in the media. Release the files. Simply release the entire files. That's the easiest way to do this. All the statements, all of the things. And I'll tell you something else.
Please.
I would be demanding, if I was in the Senate right now, I'd be on the floor of the Senate saying, I'm tired of listening to the president talk about that this is a hoax. And frankly, I'm tired of the media just assuming that, well, he said it was a hoax. So what do you respond to that? Well, it's not a hoax. He's never explained what's the hoax. Is it a hoax that these women are telling lies? Is it a hoax that there's even a file? What does he mean by it's a hoax? Nobody challenges him because he said it so often about Mueller and the Russia investigation. It's all a hoax. But nobody says, explain to us what about this is not true.
Hey, Jeff Mason, next time you're in the White House press briefing room, Doug Jones just gave you an assignment, and it's a good one. All right, Melanie, we know that the Oversight Committee...
May I respond to that briefly?
No, please.
Sorry.
Yes.
Actually, I mean, you're not entirely right about that, Doug, because today one of my good colleagues, Maggie Haberman from the New York Times, when she was called on, did ask Karoline Leavitt very specifically, what do you mean when you say it's a hoax? And so collectively, she on our part challenged that language. And Leavitt's response was basically to say it's a hoax because Democrats don't actually believe in following or caring about people who are victims of crime. So she turned it into a political answer, but we have challenged the White House on that vocabulary.
I mean, do you hear Jeff Mason taking credit for Maggie Haberman's good question? I never heard that before. Oh, she was collectively asking for all of us. Good. You know what? On Maggie's behalf, baloney.
I'm saying when she had her turn, that's what she asked, and she did a great job.
And that's great. But you know what? She didn't answer the question. It's not a hoax because Democrats don't believe X. That's not an answer. And so somebody needs to tomorrow follow up on that and say, I'm sorry, Karoline, that's not an answer. That's not saying what's a hoax. And somebody needs to ask the President of the United States directly about it.
Indeed. All right, Melanie, tomorrow the House Oversight Committee staff is going to review the unredacted birthday book. Like, where does this investigation stand? Where's it going next?
Yeah, so they're going to be able to go to New York tomorrow and view the original documents in their original form, but they already were posted publicly. And really the only information that, as far as our review could tell, was redacted was victim information. So I'm not sure that tomorrow's trip up to New York is going to reveal much information, but the committee does say it's following other leads that it did get, including some bank account information that was turned over from the estate. Comer said he's going to try to go follow the money trail now. I think for Comer, there's a real question, though, about what his end game is. It's really remarkable. We hinted at this earlier in the segment, but it's just so remarkable that this information, Stephanie, is coming because of a Republican-controlled committee. I mean, you have to think that the White House cannot be happy with the direction of this probe and what they've dug up. And it really shows the risk for Republicans here that they might be digging up information that they don't feel comfortable with, or that put Trump's or their own party in a difficult spot. So I think Comer is in a really difficult position here. He says he really wants to, again, focus on the money, focus on the non-prosecution agreement, how the government initially handled the case. So maybe finding some sort of scalp that they can bring in all of this. But it just seems like such an unforced error for Republicans who have just really been struggling with how to deal with this issue as Trump wishes it to go away and the base just is clamoring for more information.
Sure, but to be clear, Donald Trump is not the only one in said files. There are all sorts of leaders all across the political spectrum, business leaders. Name your pick, name your industry. There are really powerful men who should be really worried across the board. All right, new topic. Jeff, to you. The president, of course, is threatening to send military into cities. The immigration crackdown in Chicago has begun. But so far, there are not any troops in any cities except D.C. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing a few different things. Number one, I asked the president about this on Sunday night when we got back from New York, actually from the U.S. Open, and I asked him if there were plans, if he had plans for Chicago this week, and he sort of dodged my question and went into talking about the success that he believes they have had in Washington, D.C. And in fact, he tried to illustrate that tonight by going out for dinner in Washington, D.C. and mentioning, and he's using that as an example of what he believes is a sign that Washington, D.C. no longer has crime. But by the way, I did say when we spoke about this on the tarmac that the city still does have crime, and his response to that was not very much. But broadly, to your question, Steph, it's still in the works. These are still things that they're working on. But the going into Chicago, or the invasion of Chicago, or whatever you want to call it, by federal forces hasn't happened yet, and that may be in part because the White House is still looking at the legal ramifications of that. The president has also talked about going into a red state where he feels that the federal government or federal forces would be welcomed more than these blue states and blue cities. But he's still, and Caroline did this today too, putting a lot of focus on crime in blue states, in blue cities, and the threat is still very real from his part and from the part of the White House.